Hey Queens, how are you? And how is it going on? Let me know in the comments, and welcome back. Let me ask you something. Have you ever stopped to wonder what really happens when you vanish from his life? I'm not talking about stepping back for a moment or giving him a little space to miss you. No, I'm talking about completely disappearing. I'm talking about walking away so sharply, so decisively, that your absence cuts through his world like a crown he's suddenly unworthy to wear. Because here's the truth, he thought you'd always be there. He got comfortable, didn't he? He believed you'd always forgive, always bend, always stay. But enough is enough. You're a queen, and queens don't sit on thrones built on disrespect and half-hearted effort. This isn't just about stepping away, it's about standing tall in your power. You've been his rock, his safety net, his constant. But let me make this clear. You are not a backup plan. You're not an option he can toy with whenever it suits him. You are the prize. And the moment you disappear, the game changes forever. He won't see it coming, and when it hits him, it'll hit like thunder after the storm. Your absence will become the silence he can't ignore, the loss he can't replace, and the regret he'll carry long after you're gone. Here's the truth, Queen. He thought you'd wait. He believed you'd hold on forever, hoping, praying, begging for him to change. But let's face it, what has he really given you? A fraction of what you deserve. A handful of broken promises. The bare minimum. No more. Stop letting him act like you're interchangeable. You're not. And when you decide to vanish, when you walk away like the royalty you are, you leave a void no one else can fill. That's when he'll feel it. That's when he'll realize he lost someone priceless. You've been the one holding it all together, haven't you? The one pouring your love, your time, your energy into someone who couldn't even see your worth. But let me ask you something. What has he done to keep you? Has he matched your effort? Or has he grown lazy, assuming you'll always be there no matter how little he tries? Here's the truth he's too blind to see. The day you disappear is the day he's forced to face the reality of his own actions, or lack thereof. Your silence? It's going to shake him to his core, because for the first time, he'll have to imagine a world without you in it. And make no mistake, this isn't about playing games. You're not vanishing to teach him a lesson or manipulate him into chasing you. No, Queen, this is about you. This is about finally putting yourself first. This is about standing up and saying, I deserve more, I am more. And when you walk away, when you remove yourself from his life entirely, he'll feel it in ways he never thought possible. It'll wake him up in the middle of the night. It'll follow him in the quiet moments. It'll haunt him every time he realizes you're not coming back. Because here's the truth he never wanted to face. He thought you'd stay. He thought he could push your boundaries, test your patience, take you for granted, and you'd still be there, waiting with open arms. But queens don't wait for crumbs. Queens don't settle for just enough. And now that you've stepped away, he's left with the harsh realization that he lost the best thing he ever had. And it's nobody's fault but his own. You see, men have this delusion that they'll always have time to fix things, time to come back when they're ready, time to take you seriously when they've figured themselves out. But time is not on their side. The moment you disappear, the countdown begins. At first, he'll act like it's no big deal. He'll convince himself you're just playing hard to get, that you'll reach out any day now. But as the silence stretches longer and longer, that confidence will crumble. And underneath it all, fear. Fear that you're done waiting. Fear that you've moved on. Fear that he'll never find someone like you again. And let's talk about you, Queen. Let's talk about everything you've done to keep this connection alive. You've been patient, haven't you? You've forgiven when you shouldn't have. You've given more than you ever got in return. But where has that left you? Tired, frustrated, questioning yourself. Listen to me. You don't need his approval to feel valuable. You don't need his love to feel whole. You are already complete, already powerful, already enough. And the moment you realize that, that's the moment you become unstoppable. When you disappear, you're not just reclaiming your power, you're rewriting the rules. You're showing him that his bare minimum is no longer acceptable. And trust me, that standard you set, it'll haunt him. Because once he sees you thriving without him, once he realizes you don't need him, the tables will turn. He'll start replaying every mistake, every missed opportunity, every time he could have stepped up but didn't. He'll feel the sting of your absence in ways that shake his soul. And you'll be too busy living your best life to even notice. But let's be clear, disappearing isn't about him. It's not about teaching him a lesson or making him grovel. It's about you. It's about giving yourself the space to breathe, to heal, to grow. It's about stepping into your power and reclaiming the time and energy you wasted on someone who didn't see your worth. And when you do that, when you truly let go, you become the queen he'll never forget, the one he'll regret losing for the rest of his life. So, Queen, here's my challenge to you. Stop waiting. Stop hoping he'll change. Stop convincing yourself to settle for less than what you deserve. Instead, show him what it looks like when you walk away. Show him the power of your silence. Show him the strength of your absence. And when he finally realizes what he's lost, when the regret hits like a tidal wave, you'll know one thing for certain. You didn't need him. You never did. Drop the phrase, "I accept the challenge" in the comments if you're ready to step into your power and let him feel the impact of your absence. This is your moment to say, "I'm done settling, I'm done waiting, and I'm done chasing." Declare it loud and clear. I accept the challenge, because this is your time to rise, reclaim your worth, and show the world what a queen looks like when she takes back control of her story. Let's dive into the 9 things he'll feel when you simply disappear. Trust me, queens, this is where the real power shift begins. Let's go. Stay with me, because we're just getting started. In this video, we're going to break down the 9 things he'll feel when you simply disappear. Each one cuts deeper than the last, and by the end of this, you'll understand exactly why walking away is the most powerful thing you'll ever do. Buckle up, queens. It's time to step into your power and reclaim your throne. Let's get into it. Number 1, the gut punch of rejection. You vanish, and what's the first thing he feels? Rejection. Not just any rejection, the kind that hits hard, cuts deep, and lingers long after the dust settles. Let's not sugarcoat it. He never thought this day would come. He was too wrapped up in his own comfort, too sure of himself to believe that you would be the one to walk away. And now, his world is flipped upside down. This rejection, it feels like a sucker punch he never saw coming. When you disappear, it shakes him to his core. It chips away at his ego, rattles his pride, and leaves him reeling in a way he'd never admit out loud. Whether it's someone new you were trying to connect with, or an old relationship you finally decided to let go of, the sting is the same. At first he might play it cool, acting unbothered, pretending it doesn't faze him. But inside, it's chaos. The feeling of being left behind, of losing the control he thought he had, gnaws at him like nothing else. Picture this. You were trying to attract someone new. You made it clear you were interested. You gave your time, your energy, your attention. You showed up. And what did he do? He kept you at arm's length, maybe entertained your efforts, but never fully reciprocated. He assumed you'd always be there, circling his orbit, waiting for the day he finally decided to make up his mind. But then, you flip the script. You disappear. You stop calling, stop texting, stop putting yourself out there. You pull your energy back completely. Suddenly, he feels it. The weight of your absence. The sting of rejection hits harder than he expected. He starts to question everything. Did he play it too cool? Did he misread your intentions? Did he miss his chance? These questions pile up, each one sharper than the last. And here's the beauty of it. You're not there to answer. You're not there to explain yourself or ease his doubts. He's left alone, sitting with his own fears and insecurities. And let me tell you, it burns. Now let's talk about that old relationship, the one you fought to keep alive. Maybe you were holding on to a connection that had long since faded, clinging to the hope that he'd finally wake up and see your worth. But deep down, you knew it was over. He'd grown distant, cold, treating your love like an obligation instead of a privilege. So, what happens when you finally gather the courage to walk away? At first, he might feel relief. He tells himself you're just giving him space, that you'll come back eventually. But as the days stretch into weeks and there's no sign of you, that relief turns to panic. He realizes he's lost you. The sting of rejection starts to creep in, forcing him to confront a truth he was too blind to see before. You're not there to take for granted anymore? And here's where the tables turn. That rejection he feels, it's not just about you leaving. It's about him recognizing, maybe for the first time, that he let someone extraordinary slip through his fingers. He may not have valued you when you were there, but now that you're gone, the absence of your presence feels like a blow he never anticipated. A quote from Steve Maraboli sums it up perfectly. The most painful thing is losing yourself in the process of loving someone too much and forgetting that you are special too. That's what happened, isn't it? You gave too much. You loved too deeply. And in return, he forgot how special you are. Now, as he sits with the sting of rejection, he's forced to reckon with what he's lost. But let's be clear, this isn't about him. This moment, it's about you. It's about reclaiming your power. Because let's face it, you stayed too long. You gave too much. You feared that if you walked away, he'd forget about you or replace you. That fear kept you stuck, kept you chasing validation from someone who didn't see your worth. But now you've pulled back, and you see that fear for what it was, an illusion. What you're doing by disappearing isn't giving up. It's not running away. It's letting go. Letting go of the need to prove your worth to someone who should have seen it all along. The sting of rejection he feels now is a reflection of what happens when someone finally realizes they took you for granted. And here's what you need to remind yourself. You are not here to chase. You are not here to be anyone's second option. You are the prize. So take a deep breath and hold on to this affirmation. I am enough as I am, and I will never beg for anyone to see my worth. Say it out loud. Write it down. Let it sink in. Because the truth is, you don't need his validation. You don't need his attention to feel whole. You're not disappearing to manipulate him or to play games. You're stepping back because you've realized you deserve better, because you are better. And if you're ready to step into your power, if you're done being someone's option, then here's what I want you to do. Drop the phrase, "I'm done begging," in the comments. Let the world know you're not here to chase anyone's approval. You're here to rise, to thrive, and to remind yourself every single day that you are irreplaceable. Remember, Queens, this is just the beginning. That sting of rejection is only the first ripple in the storm your absence will create. There are 8 more powerful realizations he's about to face. So stay with me, because the journey isn't over yet. Trust me, every part of this process will shift the dynamic in ways you can't imagine. This is your moment. Let's claim it. Number 2, avoid. He can't escape. After the sting of rejection, what hits him next is something deeper, an emptiness that refuses to be ignored. It's not just the absence of your presence, it's the ache of missing something he didn't fully appreciate until it was gone. At first, he might try to convince himself otherwise. He'll tell himself he's fine, that this is just a phase, that he can move on. He'll put on a brave face, pretend that your silence doesn't bother him, and maybe even act like your absence is a relief. But the truth? The truth is far more powerful. Beneath the surface, something has shifted, and that void you've left behind is beginning to take hold of him. When you were in his life, he took it for granted. You were always there, giving, caring, holding things together. Your energy was a constant, steadying force he assumed would never falter. But now that you've disappeared, there's a gap where you used to be. It's not just the loss of your presence that gnaws at him. It's the loss of the comfort, the security, and the stability you provided. He's not just missing someone to talk to or spend time with. He's missing you. Maybe you were trying to attract someone new. You showed up for him. You gave your time, your effort, your heart. He kept you at arm's length, believing that you'd always be there, circling his world, waiting for him to get it together. He thought your patience was infinite, that your attention was guaranteed. And then, one day, you were gone. You stopped calling, stopped texting, stopped showing up. You disappeared, leaving behind only silence. And that silence, it's deafening. He notices it in ways he didn't expect. The emptiness follows him throughout his day, in the little things that remind him of you. The goodnight messages he once brushed off. He misses them now. The way you checked in on him, made time for him, made him feel seen. It's all gone. He realizes how much better his life was when you were a part of it, how much brighter his days seemed when your energy filled the spaces in his world. Now, without you, those spaces feel hollow, and that hollowness is starting to eat away at him. In a long-term relationship, this feeling cuts even deeper. You've been there through thick and thin, holding things together even when he didn't. Maybe he grew complacent, thinking you'd always stay, no matter how distant he became. Maybe he stopped putting in the effort because he assumed you'd pick up the slack. But now that you're no longer there, he's forced to confront how much of his life revolved around you. The goodnight texts, the plans you made together, the laughter you shared, they've all become painful reminders of what he lost. This emptiness doesn't just sit quietly in the background. It follows him everywhere. It's there when he hears a song that reminds him of you, when he passes by a place you used to go together, when something happens and his first instinct is to tell you, but you're not there anymore. The silence where your voice used to be is louder than anything else. The absence of your presence is a constant reminder of what he let slip away, and no matter what he does, he can't escape it. They say, you don't know what you've got until it's gone, and he's living proof of that now. He didn't see your worth when you were right in front of him. He didn't value the love, care, and attention you gave so freely. Now, he's left with only memories, grasping at fragments of what once was. He might try to distract himself, surround himself with friends, throw himself into work, or even seek out someone new, but none of it works. That void, It's too real, too persistent. It clings to him, reminding him with every passing moment of what he let go. You see, the brain craves what it can no longer have. The more he tries to move on, the more he finds himself drawn back to thoughts of you. He starts comparing everyone he meets to you, and no one measures up. The conversations feel flat, the connections feel shallow, and the energy just isn't the same. That's when it hits him. You weren't just a placeholder. You weren't just filling his time. You were someone who mattered, someone who brought meaning to his life in ways he didn't realize until now. And while he's sitting in that emptiness, you're not waiting for him to figure it out. You're moving forward. You're focusing on yourself, reclaiming your energy, and building a life that doesn't revolve around someone who took you for granted. You've stopped giving him your attention, and that's why he feels the loss so deeply. You're no longer his safety net, no longer the person he can rely on whenever he feels lonely or needs validation. He's on his own now, and it's starting to sink in. At this point, you might feel tempted to check in on him, to see if he's realized what he's lost, to see if he's ready to make things right. But here's the thing: don't. Let him sit with that emptiness. Let him feel the full weight of what it's like to live without you. This is his wake-up call, and if you step in too soon, he'll never fully grasp the depth of your value. Instead, remind yourself of this truth. You don't need his validation to feel complete. You are whole on your own. His emptiness is not your burden to carry. Repeat this affirmation: I am whole without him. Say it, believe it, and live it, because you are more than enough, just as you are. And here's the irony: the more he feels your absence, the more he'll crave your presence. That emptiness he's trying so hard to escape, it'll only grow louder, stronger, and more undeniable. Eventually he'll realize that no one else can fill the space you left behind. And when he starts reaching out, trying to reconnect, you'll know one thing for sure: you hold the power now. Write it down, queens. I am whole without him. This is your truth, your strength, and your reminder that you don't need anyone to complete you. Let him sit in that emptiness. Let him feel the full weight of missing you. And let it remind him of what he'll never take for granted again. Number 3. The obsession of curiosity. After the sting of rejection and the hollow ache of missing you, something else creeps in: curiosity. An overwhelming, all-consuming curiosity that begins to take hold of his thoughts. At first, he tries to brush it off, convincing himself that he doesn't care, that your absence doesn't matter. But as the days go by, that facade starts to crumble. Quietly, relentlessly, curiosity begins to eat away at him. He starts asking himself questions that only you have the answer to. Why did she pull away? Did I push her too far? Did she find someone else? Is she happier without me? His mind races with endless scenarios, each one more tormenting than the last. Every unanswered question fuels his obsession, and the more he thinks about you, the more he realizes he can't stop. In the case of someone new, this curiosity feels like a puzzle he can't solve. You were once there, consistently giving him your attention, chasing him with interest, making it easy for him to feel secure. Now, you're a ghost. You've vanished, and he can't figure out why. The dynamic has flipped, and suddenly he's the one wondering where he stands. Every time he picks up his phone to check for a message from you and finds nothing, it stings a little deeper. The lack of your attention is a void he doesn't know how to fill, and it drives him crazy. For someone in an old relationship, this curiosity runs even deeper. He used to know you, your patterns, your habits, your life. Now, he's left in the dark. He starts wondering who's filling the space he once occupied. Has she found someone new? Is she smiling because of him? The thought of you moving on to a brighter chapter without him haunts him. He's no longer in control, no longer the center of your world, and that uncertainty becomes unbearable. This curiosity isn't fleeting. It follows him throughout his day. When he wakes up and doesn't see a text from you, it bothers him. When he scrolls through social media and finds nothing that hints at your life, it fuels his need to know more. He starts subtly stalking your profiles, asking mutual friends about you, even replaying old messages just to feel a connection. But no matter how much he digs, he can't find the answers he's desperate for. You've left no breadcrumbs for him to follow, and that drives him wild. And what are you doing during all this? You're living your life. You've embraced the space you've created, focusing on yourself, building your strength, and moving forward. You're no longer tethered to his expectations or the need for his validation. That's what drives his curiosity to the brink. Your silence, your mystery, your refusal to give him the closure he craves. Here's your affirmation. I am the mystery he can't solve. Write it, claim it, and embody it. You're no longer an open book for him to read at his leisure. You've become the puzzle he can't put together, and trust me, he won't stop trying. Number 4. The mirror he can't escape. After being consumed by the whirlwind of curiosity, something deeper begins to stir within him. Self-reflection. Your disappearance leaves him no choice but to confront the silence and look inward. The questions he's been trying to avoid start to surface, and now, with nothing to distract him, he's forced to face them head-on. At first, he might have dismissed your absence, convincing himself that it didn't matter, that he could move on. But as time stretches on and the emptiness becomes undeniable, his mind begins to spiral. Did I push her away? Was I too distant? Did I take her for granted? These thoughts haunt him, replaying every interaction, every moment where he could have done better, should have done better. It's a storm of doubt and regret, and there's no escape from it. If you were someone new in his life, this reflection hits like a wake-up call. He starts to realize how little effort he put in, how he brushed off your energy and interest without even thinking about what he might lose. The realization stings harder than he expected. Was I too cold? Did I ignore someone who could have been special? These questions don't just linger. They pierce through his pride, leaving him to wonder if he sabotaged something that could have been meaningful. For someone in an old relationship, the reflection cuts even deeper. He starts to replay every moment where you were trying to make things work. He remembers the times you reached out, tried to communicate, tried to keep the spark alive. And now, with you gone, those moments come flooding back as reminders of how he failed to meet you halfway. Why did I let things fall apart? Why didn't I show her how much she meant to me? The memories that once felt insignificant now weigh heavily on him, each one a reminder of his own shortcomings. This self-reflection isn't about pity. It's about facing the truth of his behavior. He can't blame you for walking away, because deep down he knows it was his actions, or lack of them, that drove you to leave. For perhaps the first time, he starts to see the cracks in his own character. It's not just about losing you, it's about confronting the version of himself that let it happen. While he's grappling with his inner demons, you're doing something far more powerful. You're staying strong. You're not looking back or wondering if he's finally understanding what he lost. You're focusing on your own growth, refusing to fall back into the patterns that kept you stuck. His self-reflection is his journey. It's not your responsibility to fix him or guide him through it. You've already done the hardest part by stepping away and reclaiming your power. This is his moment to decide whether he's willing to grow, to confront the parts of himself that pushed you away, and to make the changes necessary to deserve a second chance. But that's not your concern anymore. You've chosen yourself, and that's what matters most. Here's an affirmation to keep you centered during this time. I reflect, but I don't regret. Write it, own it, and let it guide you. While he's lost in self-reflection, you're evolving into someone stronger, more self-aware, and more powerful than ever before. Let his reflection stay his burden to carry while you continue to rise. Number 5. The chase he can't resist. After the deep self-reflection sets in, something powerful takes over him, the undeniable urge to pursue you. This is the turning point where everything shifts. The man who once felt so confident, so in control of the dynamic, is now overwhelmed by the need to chase what he's lost. This isn't just a fleeting thought. It's an all-consuming drive, fueled by the emptiness your absence has left behind. At first, he may have convinced himself he was fine. He might have told himself that he didn't need you, that your departure wouldn't matter. But after feeling the sting of rejection, missing your energy, wrestling with curiosity, and reflecting on his own shortcomings, reality has hit hard. The realization of what he's lost ignites a fire he can't ignore. The urge to reach out, to close the distance, to regain what slipped away, becomes his primary focus. If you were trying to attract someone new, this is the moment he realizes he's made a mistake. He thinks back to how you consistently showed up for him, putting in effort, expressing interest, being reliable. And now, all of that is gone. You've stopped chasing, and your silence speaks volumes. He might start with small gestures to test the waters, liking your posts, commenting on something innocuous, or sending a casual "hey" out of nowhere. These breadcrumbs are his way of trying to pull you back into his orbit. He'll ask mutual friends about you, hoping to gather clues about where you stand. Each move he makes is fueled by the growing desperation to reconnect with the connection he undervalued. In an old relationship, this urge becomes even more intense. He can't stop replaying the times you gave it your all, the thoughtful gestures, the compromises, the emotional effort you poured into making things work. He starts to realize just how much you carried the weight of the relationship, how much you invested while he took it for granted. Now, with you gone, the void is glaring. He wants you back. He wants the person who showed up for him, who cared deeply, who tried to make things better even when he didn't deserve it. The irony of this moment is undeniable. The tables have turned. You've stepped away, and now he's the one chasing. The power dynamic has flipped completely. What once felt like certainty, knowing you were always there, always available, has dissolved into fear and doubt. The more he feels the loss of you, the stronger his urge becomes to reach out, to fix what's broken, and to make things right. But here's the thing. You've already made the decision to step back, and now you get to decide whether his pursuit is worth your time. This isn't about playing games. It's about standing in your own value and knowing that you no longer need to chase anyone. If he comes back, it's on your terms, not his. As he scrambles to reconnect, remind yourself of this. You are the prize, not the option. He's chasing because he finally sees what you've always known. You're worth pursuing. Here's an affirmation to keep you grounded at this point. I attract, I don't chase. Write it in the comments, own it, and let it be known. You've shifted the dynamic, and now he feels the urge to pursue you. Number 6. The clash of relief and regret. At first, when you walked away, he might have felt a sense of relief, foolishly mistaking your absence as freedom. He probably thought, finally, I've got some space. Finally, I can breathe. Maybe he even convinced himself that this was what he needed to figure things out. For a brief moment, he celebrated the idea of independence, of being untethered, of living without the energy you poured into him day after day. But that relief, it was nothing but a mask for the storm brewing underneath, because relief doesn't last when it's built on lies. Soon, regret starts creeping in. It doesn't knock politely. It barges through the door and plants itself in his mind, demanding his attention. At first, it whispers, "Did I make a mistake?" Then it gets louder. "Why didn't I try harder? How could I have let her walk away?" The thoughts keep piling up, louder, sharper, more impossible to ignore. His confidence begins to crack under the weight of it. The sense of relief he clung to starts to dissolve, replaced by the suffocating realization of what he's lost. For someone new, the regret cuts differently but just as deep. At first, he might have convinced himself that he didn't need you, that your attention was just a fleeting distraction, nothing important. Maybe he felt relief at dodging the pressure of your affection, mistaking your genuine effort for something burdensome. But now he sees things clearly. Now he's sitting in silence, haunted by the truth. I let someone incredible slip away, someone who cared, someone who was real, and for an old relationship, the regret is downright brutal. He might have celebrated your absence at first, thinking, finally, I don't have to deal with this anymore. But as time drags on, the memories creep in. He starts to remember all the moments you stood by him, the love you gave freely, the times you forgave when he didn't deserve it. He replays the moments he could have done more, could have shown up for you, could have fought harder to make it work, and every memory cuts him like a blade. The truth hits him like a punch he didn't see coming. What he thought was freedom wasn't freedom at all. It was the absence of something meaningful. What he mistook for relief was just a hollow space where your presence used to be. And now, instead of feeling light, he feels heavy, weighted down by the realization that he took you for granted. And there's no undoing that. This battle between relief and regret isn't just an emotional tug-of-war. It's a reckoning. It's his wake-up call. It's the moment he realizes how foolish he was to think he could live without you. And that regret, it doesn't go away. It stays with him, a constant reminder that he let something extraordinary slip through his fingers. Here's where your power lies, Queen. His regret is not your responsibility. You don't owe him your forgiveness, your attention, or another chance. He's battling himself now, and that fight is his alone. The time and energy he spent taking you for granted, that's time and energy you're now pouring into yourself. Let his regret fuel your strength. Let it remind you that you are more than enough, that you are not someone's afterthought or backup plan. He's the one who made the mistake, and now he's the one left to carry that burden. Say this affirmation out loud. I am more than enough. Write it, believe it, live it. Let it remind you that you are the prize, not the option. His regret is his lesson to learn, but your strength, that's yours to own. Number 7, the game he can't win. As regret starts to settle in, he feels something else stirring, a desperate desire to play the game. This isn't about fixing things or owning up to his mistakes. It's about trying to regain control. Instead of confronting his emotions head-on, he turns to manipulation, testing the waters to see if he can pull you back without admitting he was wrong. But here's the truth. He's already lost the upper hand. He'll act indifferent, maybe even distant, mirroring your behavior in an attempt to make you curious. He might post on social media, flaunting a life that looks full and carefree, hoping to spark jealousy. Maybe he flirts with someone else, thinking it will get under your skin. But while he's busy playing these games, he's missing one crucial fact. You're not playing anymore. You've stepped back, reclaimed your power, and moved beyond the need for validation. His attempts to make you react only highlight his insecurity. Every move he makes is a desperate effort to regain control, but you see it for what it is, a last-ditch attempt to cling to a situation that's no longer his to control. In a new connection, his cool act starts to crack as the days pass without a word from you. He wanted you to reach out first, but your silence frustrates him. In an old relationship, he might use mixed signals, trying to reel you back in with hot and cold behavior. But you've outgrown these tricks. Here's your affirmation. I no longer play games. Write it, claim it, and live it. Let him play all he wants. You've already won by choosing to rise above it. Number 8. The silence that shatters him. When all his games fail, he's left with the one thing he didn't expect, the crushing, inescapable weight of silence. At first, he thought he could handle it. He convinced himself he'd wait it out, that you'd break first. But your silence, it's louder than any words you could have spoken. It's not just quiet, it's deafening, and it's shattering his sense of control. Every day without a message, a call, or a sign of you is a brutal reminder of what he's lost. The silence becomes a constant echo in his mind, forcing him to sit with his regret. He starts to realize that your presence wasn't just noise in his life, it was the rhythm that held everything together. And now, that rhythm is gone, replaced by a void he doesn't know how to fill. For someone new, this silence is unbearable. He's used to you being the one who made the effort, who kept things moving forward. Now, without you, he's left alone with the reflection of his own indifference, his own lack of effort, and it's tormenting him. For someone from an old relationship, it's even worse. The silence takes away everything he once knew, the comfort, the connection, even the arguments. Now he's left in a quiet that feels suffocating, haunted by every moment he took you for granted. Your silence is your power. It forces him to confront his actions, his failures, and his loss. And the longer it lasts, the heavier it gets. For him, not you. Here's your affirmation. My silence is my strength. Let the silence speak for you, Queen, because it says more than words ever could. Stand tall. Let him feel the weight of your absence. Number 9. The fear that brings him crawling back. After all the rejection, regret, and games, one thing rises above everything else: fear. It's not just any fear, it's the gut-wrenching realization that he may have lost you for good. This fear isn't fleeting. It's a tidal wave, crashing over him with the force of every moment he took you for granted. He starts to panic. What if she's truly moved on? What if someone else is making her laugh, holding her hand, or filling the space I once occupied? These thoughts consume him, and the weight of his mistakes becomes unbearable. He realizes you're no longer waiting, no longer within reach, and the idea of a life without you, it's more than he can take. This fear drives him to desperation. It strips away his pride, his ego, and every ounce of control he thought he had. He begins to see you for who you truly are, someone irreplaceable, someone he can't live without. And that's when it happens. The fear pulls him to his knees, and he starts crawling back. But here's where you stand tall. His fear is not your validation. It's not your responsibility to ease his regret or rebuild what he let fall apart. If he comes back, it's on your terms, not out of pity, but because you know your worth. Here's your affirmation. I am worth the chase. Write it, believe it, and let it guide you. Whether he comes back or not, remember, you are the prize. His fear is proof that you've always been what he needed. But now, the choice is yours. So queens, remember this. Your power lies in knowing your worth and refusing to settle for less. When you step back, your silence speaks louder than words, and your absence becomes the wake-up call they never expected. You are the prize, not the option, and whether they come back or not, your worth remains untouchable. If this video resonated with you, don't forget to like, subscribe, and share it with another queen who needs this reminder. Drop "I reclaim my throne" in the comments and let the world know you're stepping into your power. Until next time, stay strong and stay regal.